Why the Gophers' true freshmen could be shining stars in football. Then we're going to talk Gophers' departures that have hit the portal in this week. And finally, guess that Gopher right here on Locked On Golden Gophers.
Locked On Golden Gophers, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob. I'm a former collegiate football video coordinator along with recruiting assistant, and I'm here now with Locked On Golden Gophers to answer all of your Golden Gophers questions. Let's talk all the sports of Golden Gophers and tell you what you need to hear, whether it is hard or pleasant about the Golden Gopher sports. We're talking football. We're talking basketball, both men and women's. We're talking hockey, both men's and women's. And we'll talk whatever you would like to talk here at Locked On Golden Gophers. So be sure to check us out over on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. We're just getting kicked off over there, and it's building slowly but surely. So drop comments there. Let's get this community interactive and having a good time. And check us out wherever you find your podcasts. Find us at Locked On Golden Gophers. Now, let's get to what we are talking about, and that is looking at this spring football program in the spring game, why I believe our true freshmen could be shining stars in the waiting. Now, Zach Evans is the first guy I got to bring up. Zach Evans had 11 attempts in the spring game for 53 yards. That's 4.6 yards per carry. But it wasn't all about the effectiveness. Now, you like to see that effectiveness. It's pretty rock solid. You know that he doesn't have to head into the season as your number one starter. So the fact that you can get that sort of efficiency and production from a true freshman from the jump, love to see it. Absolutely positive. But what I really loved in that spring game and what we got to witness is that he ran with speed. He ran with force, and he ran not afraid of contact. He was not afraid to lay his shoulder down and rock a defender, even a teammate defender at that. He will lay the boom, and that was what was really exciting when watching him run on the ground. But it's not just in the ground or on the ground that we get to be excited with Zach Evans. In fact, he had 3 catches for 20 yards, and that included a nasty, and I mean absolutely filthy, one-handed catch across the middle of the field on a crossing route that was underthrown by Ethan Kayakmanis, where he had to reach back and grasp it one-handed, pull it in, and it was absolutely beautiful, filthy. I mean, I know those are contradicting, but that's how darn nice that grab was. But what a lot of people haven't talked about is literally one play prior to that nasty one-handed grab was a quick dump off pass to Zach Evans, the play right before, where he kind of bobbled it a little bit as he was trying to gain control and get his head around. And as he was bobbling it, he nearly had another filthy kind of juggled one-handed toe tap catch to keep himself in bounds and still gain positive yardage. Now, unfortunately, his foot did go out of bounds, so it didn't count, but the athleticism shown in that type of play, you were like, wow. That's Zach Evans. That's what he's bringing to the table. And it sucked because it wasn't complete. But then the very next play, filthy one-handed, and you're like, okay, yep, this kid's athletic. This kid's got it. He's not just a runner. He can do it through the air. I am so excited for Zach Evans. I think he's going to get some time this year. I don't think he redshirts. I think he is going to be in this rotation, and we're really going to warm him up. Now, he's not going to be the starter. We all know this, Mo Ibrahim is our guy, and he has the talent to be an NFL guy. We're going to give him all the touches in his final year of eligibility. That being said, we run the ball enough to get other running backs touches, and we have consistently had other backs get a fair to decent amount of touches. I believe Zach Evans is going to be one of the first 3 backs to get touches in this offense. Evans, Potts, if he makes that full recovery and can come back, and then Mo Ibrahim, of course. So super excited, superstar in the waiting. But let's touch on some of the other guys, other true freshmen that popped out to me as well. Ike White, he had 5 receptions for 27 yards. Now, though that doesn't sound like, whoa, that's real earth-shattering stuff, Kane. Thanks for that. 5 catches for 27 yards. It's not all about that. He was creating a lot of space, especially on the deep ball, which was great to see, but he was overthrown 3 different times by Cole Kramer. To see the separation, to see the quick get off of the line of scrimmage, the release package that he has, and how much they were giving him looks in the spring game was awesome. I was not expecting much from a true freshman wide receiver. I was expecting more from our older guys. Now, they didn't play as much, so I'm not expecting a whole lot in terms of contribution for Ike White, but the little flashes that we did see, the quick end around that could have broke real big, but he got tripped up for only 2-yard gain rather than a potential 12-plus yard gain play. But Ike White being used a lot, that was super intriguing. Love to see it. He'll be someone to keep an eye on, especially over next offseason and this fall camp. Another true freshman that kind of stood out, and he had been hearing his names in a lot of press conferences with PJ Fleck as we approached the spring game, and that was Coleman Bryson. He's a safety, true freshman. He had 3 tackles and a PBU, and his name keeps getting brought up more and more. Now, he's not going to replace our current safeties because both of those guys bring a lot of veteran experience, and they also bring experience that we just had with a top 5 defensive unit last season. So those guys are going to remain in their positions. But if we need a rotation, if we need a breather, if injuries do present themselves, Coleman Bryson's shown that he can pick the defense up rather quickly and contribute. So that was awesome to see. Another one that didn't pop up on the stat book as much, but showed flashes and intrigue to me was Tariq Watson, true freshman out at the cornerback position. He had 1 tackle, but one thing that I noticed right away in that first half where you were seeing some of the starters and seeing it on the very first gold drive was he was lining up one-on-one coverage with Dalen Wright, and he actually held his own. The first immediate shot thrown on the gold team was to Dalen Wright. It was probably about a 30-yard, 25-yard pass, and it was underthrown, but he kept right in there with Dalen Wright, and Dalen Wright had to try to come back for the ball, but Tariq Watson played it beautifully. No PI, also made the receiver come back and really forced the incompletion of sorts. It wasn't a PBU, but he was right there, and he was lined up with Dalen Wright on multiple occasions and held his own. That's pretty impressive for a true freshman, so he'll be a fun one to watch. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention Ryland Kelly and Hayden Schwartz, who both had multiple tackles in this spring game. So our true freshmen, the early enrollee guys, they were really stepping up, showing out, and Zach Evans is the cream of the crop when it comes to those guys. Now, I'm excited by Coleman Bryson and Ike White as well. I think all of them will still need some time, but I was impressed with our true freshman class, and I think you should be too. Now, next, we're going to talk about maybe the reason these freshmen being the reason why some of these guys are headed out the door. They entered the transfer portal, and we've had a handful of guys, so we're going to talk about that next. But first, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Built Bar. See, Built Bar, they have this great protein bar, 17 grams of protein, tastes absolutely delicious, and that's what they focus on. They focus on making sure it tastes good, and then they make sure it's healthy for you. Now, of course, me, myself, and I love the fact that they make it taste good. If it wasn't fully healthy for me, I'd probably still give it a run if it tastes delicious. But the fact that it is pretty healthy for me as well, 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar and 4 net carbs, with 17 grams of protein, it's honestly the perfect bar for you to take after a workout, after a walk, after a jog, after a run, after a marathon, you name it. The Built Bar is perfect for that. I mean, why not? And then they have flavors like mint brownie or coconut almond, and they even have Puffs flavor, which is their marshmallow bar wrapped in 100% real chocolate. That's right, marshmallow bar wrapped in 100% real chocolate. In fact, all of the Built Bars are wrapped in 100% real chocolate. So go over to built.com today and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. Now, like I said, with the stepping up of freshmen, with the opportunities that presented themselves to other players, we did have a handful of our Gophers football players enter the transfer portal. Now, the deadline was this past week. Actually, it followed right after our spring game. And we actually ended up losing 5 guys to entering the transfer portal after our spring game. So that makes it a total of 7 in this spring alone. Now, of course, we just recently talked about Bucky Irving and how he transferred to the Oregon Ducks. He'll likely see opportunity with them. I don't think he would have signed had they not at least offered him a really good shot or a shot at a large role. So we'll see him with that. But I do believe, and I've said this from the jump since the Bucky Irving news broke, that I believe Zach Evans was a large reason into why Bucky maybe entered his name into the portal. I mean, it seems as though he does not want to split the load. Now, yes, also NIL, he was looking for a payday. He wanted to get some money, but also he wants to be the guy. I mean, he's going to Oregon. He's trying to get an opportunity probably to play at the next level as well. And maybe he doesn't see himself splitting time and giving him the best opportunity for that. Now, he would have had to sit or split carries with Mo Ibrahim this year, plus potentially Trayson Potts. And then you see true freshman Zach Evans going off, and you're like, that's it. I'm outie. It's a wrap. I want to be the guy. And I've said from the jump, I thought I was a little suspicious of that. And I think the more that we see flashes from Evans, the more it became prevalent, especially since Ibrahim, Potts, and Williams were all not taking reps in the team periods because of their injuries. So the only other person that really could have been stealing reps from Bucky in this whole spring up until the spring game was Zach Evans. You got guys like Jordan Newman who helped step up a little bit in the spring game, got a couple touches, but the only one that was heavily used in this spring game was Zach Evans. So that leads me to believe that. But outside of Bucky, we've already talked about him. Doug Emilien, he was another guy who transferred before we had officially hit our spring game. He was a wide receiver, hadn't seen much time with the Gophers. He commits to Kansas with the Jayhawks, joining Kai Thomas, former Gopher, over there as well. And then as for the new transfer portal entries, none of these guys have found their homes yet, but they're all coming off of the spring game and entered the portal. The first being Solomon Brown. He's from the class of 2019 when it comes to high school class. He was a cornerback, and he's actually the only player of the 5 players that entered after the spring game with some playing time contributions in the past few seasons that weren't mainly on special teams. He played in 4 games in 2020 and 2 games in 2021. Now, he didn't get a whole lot of playing time. He has 3 years of eligibility left, but a huge reason for him leaving, and a lot of these guys leaving, is because the opportunity isn't there for them. And I'm sure they want to be able to see the field. When you look at the cornerback position and you look at a guy like Solomon Brown, he saw at least potentially 6+ cornerbacks ahead of him on the depth chart. He saw guys like Beanie Bishop, who absolutely popped off in the spring game, and Ryan Stapp, who also held his own in the spring game. 2 transfers that came in immediately from the jump, contributing and starting for the Gophers. Plus, you have freshman All-American Justin Wally, who is also back there in the DB position as a starter. So you got those 3 guys already right away in front of him. Then you add Terrell Smith, you add Miles Fleming, you add Flip Dixon. I mean, those are all guys in front of him at his own position. I just named off 6 guys right there. 6 guys. And then you have true freshman Tariq Watson, who I just mentioned in the previous segment ahead of this one, who also stepped up and showed flashes, held his own against Dalen Wright. That's 7 guys right there that are all in front of Solomon Brown on this current depth chart. So I understand why he entered the portal, and I don't blame him for it. Even if it means going to the FCS level, if it means going to a non-Power 5 school, at least he can get the playing time he is looking for. And I think that's a similar thing with all of these guys. Now, Brock Annexstad entered the transfer portal. Wide receiver class of 2017. He has 1 year of eligibility left. He solely saw time as a punt returner and a special teams player for the most part for the Gophers, especially this past season, serving as a punt returner, though he had 71 total return yards at the punt returning position this past season. Now, similar to Brock Annexstad, Jonathan Mann also plays wide receiver and entered the transfer portal. He's from the class of 2019. He's had no in-game action over the 2 years that he's been with the Gophers football program, and he has 4 years of eligibility left. Now, both of these wide receivers are well behind Chris Ottman-Bell, Dalen Wright, Michael Brown-Stevens, Daniel Jackson, Ike White, who presented himself pretty well in the spring game, and Larry Wright III, who also presented himself well, and PJ Fleck mentioned could be getting himself some time in this fall season. That's 6 guys again right there, all in front of these 2 receiving options. And then that doesn't even take into account the targets that Brevin Spanford and Jamison Greer are gonna earn and show reasons why they'll be in the pass game and involved as well. So 6 receivers and 2 tight ends at least getting more touches, opportunities, targets in front of these 2 guys. That's 8 players. So again, I do not blame these guys for entering the portal, even if it means taking a step down or a lower opportunity within the D1 Division I football. Lastly, we have our final 2 transfers, which was Austin Beer. He was an offensive guard from the class of 2018. He's played in 1 game in his past 3 seasons with the Gophers. Not a whole lot of production. Our O-line has a ton of depth. Now, I've mentioned in that spring game, I was concerned by how our bench depth at the O-line showed out in the spring game. Lots of sacks given up. But he wasn't really seeing the opportunity even with that struggle with our offensive line depth over this spring program that was noticeable. So I understand it all. I get why they're doing it. And the last transfer is our backup punter, Daniel Sparks, entered the transfer portal. He transferred in last year and has now re-entered the portal. He did not play at all last season. And again, he was the backup, slated to be the backup again this season. So all these guys seemingly entered the transfer portal due to playing time or lack thereof. It doesn't seem like these guys are NIL guys that are trying to get more money or the opportunity to have money presented to them. But it honestly seems like these guys are all looking for an opportunity to see the field and show their talents. So best of luck to all these guys. Honestly, we wish you nothing but the best. We hope you find the opportunity you're looking for. Thank you for your time with the Gophers, whether that was scout team reps, whether that was helping your guys off the field, whatever you did, the brotherhood you built, the bonds you made, and the development that you had with your fellow teammates. Thank you. We appreciate that. We appreciate all you've done, and we hope that you at least had a good time in your time with the Golden Gophers here at the University of Minnesota. So those are the people who have entered the transfer portal. We will be on the lookout for where they find their next opportunities, and again, wish them nothing but the best. Speaking of nothing but the best, when you have car issues, you need to check out Rock Auto. Rock Auto offers you the best prices for any car parts that you may need for your car or truck. Why go through the awkward, sometimes intimidating process of going to a car dealership, having them tell you all these things are wrong? You're going to pay a boatload of money. Oh, yeah. And the parts that you need they only have this specific kind at their shop, which is, of course, the most expensive one. We all know this to be true. We all have experienced that utter gross feeling when it comes to fixing our cars. You see a light go on and you're like, man, please do not let this be expensive. And it always is. It always is. But no more. See, you should go to Rock Auto and check out their prices. Why pay 30%, 50%, and sometimes even 100% more for the same parts? You can head on over to rockauto.com on your mobile device or computer and find the better option for you. Save money, and that money stays in your pocket. So head on over to Rock Auto for the best options when it comes to fixing your car and getting parts for your car or truck. And when you're over there, be sure to enter in the "How did you hear about us" box and put "Locked On" so they know that we sent you. Rock Auto, it's a lifesaver. So head on over to rockauto.com and be sure to let them know that we sent you over at Locked On. Thank you again for making Locked On Golden Gophers your first listen. And if you haven't subscribed yet on YouTube, please do that. Your subscription helps us build this community, and it's free. It's 100% free. This Golden Gophers podcast is free, whether you listen to it on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you're over on YouTube and you're watching the podcast and the video as well. Please subscribe, please follow, please leave a 5-star review. We're building this thing up, and by the time we hit the season, it's going to go crazy. It's going to be a great time. And I'm going to tell you some of the things to look out for in this month of May at the very end of this episode. But before we do that, we need to play Guess That Gopher. It's another edition. If you've ever listened to the Power Trip Morning Show with K-Fan, which is a local radio station in Minneapolis, then you know the initials game. It's a clue-based trivia game in which I will present you clues. Now, you don't have to worry about initials because all of these people will be Gopher athletes. And so we've already done this on previous Wednesday episodes, so be sure to check that out if you enjoy the game. But I've got another one for you, and I think I could stump quite a few people. Now, feel free to drop your guesses in the comments below on the YouTube channel. But I'm going to present you with 6 clues. And the earlier you can guess the correct player, the better. But you only get 3 strikes. If you get more than 3 strikes, you're out. Sorry, that's how we play it. This is baseball. I mean, it's not baseball, but 3 strikes, you're out. So be sure to be careful on these clues and see if you can guess that Gopher. So let's kick it off with clue number 1. This Gopher player played high school sports in Minnesota. Clue number 2. This Gopher was only the second player born outside of North America to play for the Gophers in their sport. Clue number 3. This Gopher had 124 points in 114 games. Clue number 4. Prior to playing with the Golden Gophers, this Gopher played in the USHL. Clue number 5. This Gopher scored 42 goals in his time with the Gophers. Again, he had 124 points in 114 games. 42 of those were goals. And the final clue, clue number 6. This Gopher has played for 5 NHL professional teams, one of which has been the Minnesota Wild. Did you get it? I'll give you the final answer on who this Gopher was in 5 seconds. The answer to this version of Guess That Gopher was none other than Eric Howla. I hope you got it right. I hope you're enjoying this game. If you are, be sure to leave a comment down below so I know and we can keep it going. And if you absolutely hate the game and you're not interested, let me know down below, because then I can tweak this. We can come up with a better segment. We can come up with something that you are interested in, because this is the show where we always continue to grow. I want to make it the show where you go for entertainment, for Gopher news, for our takes and thoughts on what is happening with the latest and greatest of your Minnesota Golden Gophers. So thank you again for tuning into the Locked On Golden Gophers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. The last thing I want to bring up as we head out today is that we have interviews coming up. We have crossover episodes coming up. I will be chatting with none other than Ryan Burns, who is an awesome Gopher analyst. And I know you all read his articles. You all listen to his podcast that comes on. It's not as frequent, but it is great and it's hard-hitting information. So Ryan Burns will be on the show in this month of May. We've also got a 2023 Gopher commit who will be on the podcast. I'm not going to say his name quite yet because I want to make it a surprise for you. But we're in the works of getting that scheduled right now. It should be in the next week or two. And then we have a crossover episode coming with Locked On Badgers. Those pesky Badgers, the rivals, the biggest rivals of the Golden Gophers. You know what? We've got a great amount of content. We're going to do multiple crossovers with our friends and enemies over at Locked On Badgers. We've got some great stuff for you. We're going to talk about the Big Ten West. Is it underrated or not? We're going to talk about how the coaches in the Big Ten, how we would rank them. We're going to talk about, is this rivalry one-sided? We're going to get into it all, and I am ready to fight to the death for you Gopher fans. So be sure to tune into those crossover episodes. Be sure to tune into the interviews, and be sure to stay locked on Golden Gophers. This is Kane Rob signing off. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow.